All right, Dave. Now we can go to the super chat. I did not want to leave Trust the Process or Jake hanging. So Trust the Process said that you were confident the pay-per-view wasn't going to do as well despite the time moving, citing fans not spending all day watching two shows. Are you willing to reassess that the AEW core base is much bigger than the 50 to 60K that you believe to be so?
Well, I don't think that like again, when you look at how many people, uniquely buy every show, the number is very, very small. What I think it did show is that, AEW, I think, has done real well as far as this year really satisfying the audience that buys. And the other thing too is I think the price was a big factor in this one. It's the first time at a lower price people are going to sample it. Just kind of be okay. I can get it for a cheaper price. The other one too is I think that I underestimated greatly Kyle Fletcher. I thought that he was not at the level to draw on top as a pay-per-view guy, even though in the entire build, I thought that Adam Page and Kyle Fletcher were phenomenal. They did the best job they could do with the hand that we're dealt. I just felt that people were not ready for Kyle Fletcher as a world title challenger. They didn't believe he could win. And even though, yes, I look at it on paper, oh yeah, it's going to be an absolutely fantastic match. Evidently that was good enough. But I think that, I think that this pay-per-view was kind of a nice referendum for Adam Page and a real referendum for Kyle Fletcher. So that's, I think, where I think when I look back now, I think that it's a combination of the price and the fact that I was just so convinced that Kyle Fletcher was not ready. And this was, John and I talked about this, it's like, sometimes you got to sacrifice to make the guy. And this was the sacrifice. Well, guess what? It obviously worked a lot better than I thought. So, as far as, two shows on one day, I think it is it is so advantageous to go first. Mm-hmm. That's what I think. That's what I learned about this one. And I think that for AEW, because of UK and because the shows are so long, I really think that early start time, like I said at the beginning of the show, it's like that early start time. Like it's funny because, Garrett, you and I watch these shows together, and you know how it is way late in the show. And it's, even though it's where we're Pacific time, so it's not as bad as if we were Eastern, but it's like, we're ready for this thing to be over. Sometimes there's those matches right before the main event where you're just kind of going like, get this over with, let's get to the main event. And it's like, we watched this one, and while we all acknowledged that it was long, and we said it many, many times, I never was out of the show, and I was never wishing for a match to end, and I wasn't even wishing for the show to end. And when those guys went out there in that main event, and I could tell they were going 30, and we all knew they were going 30, and we all kind of figured they're going to the end of that hour just to show WWE, right? And I never felt like, oh guys, you're dragging it out. And I think a lot of credit goes also as the show that no one has given credit for is I think that ladder match being so fantastic really helped, because that match, if it was not fantastic, people would have, said enough is enough. There's a long show, but that was so good. And then, like Paige, I don't know. What do you guys think on that?
I think AEW had a better show than WWE did.
Well, we know that.
So, yeah. I mean, but when you're going to go in direct competition, and WWE, they have a more restrictive playbook than AEW, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. Everyone kind of knows this. But when you're going to go in direct competition, it becomes much more abundant and sort of obvious where your flaws are compared to AEW's. And because AEW went first, I mean, you said it in The Observer perfectly, Dave. You're watching AEW first, then you switch on to WWE, you're going to notice the difference. You just are. And outside of the EO match, which, that was a great match, but everything else was just fine. There was nothing bad on the show, in my opinion, but it was just a show. And if they're going to do this sort of, which they are, direct competition all the time, I would think you would want your talent to give you better matches and put on a better show. And therefore, I think you would be more competitive. That's just my opinion. I think that's if you're determined to do this, okay, make your shows better.
You know, I think that, like, you know, the funny part of the whole last 3 show experiment thing, with WWE trying to counter everything, you know, I think that this show's number tells me that it backfired. Taught Tony a lesson that I think is very valuable about moving the shows up. We'll see if he does it. But the other thing is that, like, and this is the one thing about WWE, and you know, I've been through a million of these wrestling wars, whether it's in territories or on a national basis. And the difference between this one and all of them is the WWE is, God, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. The hubris is so high that while we say all this, okay, while we all say this, okay, they are saying in their heads, this didn't happen. It's only you. Nobody else sees it. They believe that they are so far ahead that all they got to do is put something there and they will hurt it. And they prove with NXT that does not work at all. You can go
that's a joke of a but that's not even
no, but that July 12th head-to-head thing, when that thing was over, it was just like, what? I mean, I was like going like, you know, like, look, what are you guys thinking? This is not, you know, like, and it's from WWE. You're going head to head. You know, it's like, okay, the Saturday Night Main Event, you had the Goldberg thing, it was something big, right? You tried to do the Seth Rollins thing, okay, whatever. But you went head to head. You know, you went head to head with this NXT, and not even a good NXT. You just threw something together. We're gonna hurt them.
There's by going good NXT, by the way.
Well, there used to be.
There used to be good NXT.
Yeah, but I mean, I mean, the thing is like, and it was the case here. It's like, I think that they feel, and look, there still was more interest in the WWE show, but as far as anyone who watched both shows,
that's the key.
So, but I think that, but to hurt AEW, okay, you have to get the people who watch both, because if you only get the people who watch you're not hurting AEW anyway.
Right.
So that's where I think the thing is, you know, if they went head to head, I think they would have hurt AEW, but they didn't. And if they had gone first, there would be some people go, I've had my fill of wrestling for the day. Where I think I also misinterpreted was the feeling of people will look and go, AEW fans go like, I'm whatever. It's WWE. It's more important. They got Adam Page and Kyle Fletcher. And I was wrong. Those people, the people who were going to buy AEW, they may not have bought them second. They did buy them first. And then it hurt WWE, because I think the people who watched that first, I think a lot of them, I've had my fill of wrestling. And again, you know, you just go in there and let's say you watch the show, then you go back and you fast forward to the start and you see 52 minutes of with an 8-minute match, and you're already in a bad mood, because it's like, I just watched that ladder match, and I just watched that freaking Moscow Dorada and Takeshita and Okada match. And then Adam Page and Fletcher had this absolute classic, you know, better match than I would have ever expected from them.
Yeah.
You know, and now I'm watching a bunch of people glad handing each other, we're so wonderful, we're so great, we're with the ESPN. And I mean, it just came off, you know, I think that, like, again, you do the head-to-head comparison, you gotta like in the, like, just an example, in the Raw and Nitro period, when they went head to head, and it took a little while because Vince also was like this, but after a while, Vince realized, I got to beat them. If I just show up, I'm not beating them. Vince, for probably the first year, thought, I just got to show up. They're so far beneath me. Ha ha ha. This is a joke. They're going to kill themselves doing this. And it didn't happen because Eric was ahead of the curve, you know, way ahead of the curve when it came to TV, you know, way ahead. And then Vince had to react. And these guys are not in that position yet where they believe they have to react. They still think that all we have to do is be here and we're going to hurt them. And it's like, you know, AEW can't beat WWE, but WWE's ability to hurt AEW, I think this year took a licking. Is that the best way to put it?
Yeah. Well, and what it comes down to, and it's the head-to-head thing, but it's the crossover. If you have a person willing to watch both, it's to WWE's disadvantage, because they're going to be exposed. If somebody's willing to watch both, that means they're already open.
Yeah.
And that's where AEW is going to show up and show better. And that's where WWE is going to struggle, and they don't want to encourage those kind of scenarios. That's where it's kind of bad, because if your product gets a little colder, while the other one starts heating up, you have a direct comparison, and then people are going to make that note in their head. What did I like more?
Okay, and here's another one. There is a mentality in WWE: what we do is best. What they do in other places is wrong. What we do is best, right? And it's like, and nothing will ever change that until they fall behind, and they're not going to fall behind. So they will always have that mentality, and they will always have that Vince McMahon, Bryan Danielson conversation, okay, where Bryan Danielson's about to go to AEW, and people are talking about AEW, you know, and Vince goes, Bryan, is there one thing that they do better than us? And Brian's like dumbfounded, because like, I mean, like everything that I like, you know what I mean? Everything I like about wrestling, they do better. But it's like Vince, it's like he couldn't even fathom the idea that they do anything better, because we're, you know, and I think that the hierarchy in WWE, Nick Khan, I would, you know, Levesque, I think all of them would have that exact same attitude. There's nothing they do better than us. Oh yeah, okay, there's, you know, these hardcore fans, and they don't like us anyway. They don't count. We don't listen to them. But you don't want to go head to head. You know, I think that, or on the same day. Head to head, actually, I think, you know, they might do all right. But same day when AEW goes first, no. Okay, let's go to the next question. I went way too long on that.
I do have a couple things, and this is good for the video folks, because there's really good stuff being taught. Okay, the first thing, you said hubris. I said that like literally like before WrestleMania.
You told me that the week of WrestleMania, the whole build to WrestleMania, you talked to me. I remember you telling me the hubris of WWE was really coming through. And this was, you know, I think that when it comes to interest and stuff, I think since WrestleMania, you know, because the botched Cena thing and everything, so much of AEW has come off better than WWE. Certainly the booking, you know, which I would not have said before. And I think that they're, you know, the success, you know, it's very easy when you have super success to rest on your laurels and think you can do no wrong. Vince had that many times. When Vince had super success, it led to big drops because he thought he could do no wrong.
Right.
And I think that this crew has got that. I think the other thing is like the talent in WWE among the wrestlers is really good. And they could provide more of a competition to the AWA talent, but the WWE mentality is we know how to work and they don't. And as long as they say they don't know how to work while we're having Moscow Dorada out there or Will Ospreay or people like that, it's a you know, it's like they're, you know, they're the Vince McMahon of the late 90s when Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio and those guys came up, and the WWE side, and believe me, they laughed at them. Not so much Benoit. Eddie Guerrero, not laughed, but didn't take him seriously. Rey Mysterio absolutely laughed at, right? And it's like, no, you know, it's like, this is not comedy. This is not funny. Things are changing. And they did. And then, you know, so.
You can't close your mind. You can't close your mind.
You can't close your mind.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and I think that this is what is really, for people who watch both, I think what's hurt WWE is that they are so sure that they're right, that even like someone going, hey, look, you know, you can do better and everything like this, but it's like, no, this is how you work. This is how you work for the This is okay. So this is another one. Okay. Now that I'm on this subject, this is how you work for the masses. Okay. This is how you work for the masses. This is what the casual fan wants. They don't want that stuff. Okay. And it's like, you know what? Like John, you know this because you and I have talked about this. I know what the casual non-wrestling fan wants and what they enjoy because I see it every Friday night. And it's not WWE needs TV. They need larger than life personalities that are created by TV. They cannot get someone who is not a fan and walk into the building and like it as much as CMLL can get these tourists to do, because CMLL has figured out what the average person wants to see. And it's not, you know, people go, oh, it's Mexico. And it's like, and 5 years ago, when you say that to me, it's like, you're probably right. And and you're probably right. And I have no proof. This year, you can't say that to me anymore, because the number of people that are Americans that go there and come back and rave about it and there's new people week after week after week, you know, and all that. And it's like they don't leave unsatisfied, and they make more noise, and they're having a better time. That's the thing. You look at their faces when you watch that show. That's the thing that hits me. You know, people have a good time at WWE. People have a good time at AEW. I never see any crowds just absolutely have a good time like Friday Night Arena in Mexico.
Okay. Another thing. Buddy of mine, Mexican guy who's really grew up in the US. WWE was one of the first things that he saw as a kid. And so he definitely still watches, he still enjoys the product for the most part, but they also piss him off a lot. You can imagine being a Mexican American fan and some of their political leanings that they've shown a little bit more so lately than usual. And so on the flip side, there is AEW, so the competition. And the thing that I was wondering is, because he asked me this every time. He's like, okay, we just had this really good AEW show. WWE did not have a good show. Now, if there are viewers who watch WWE who are not satisfied, what did AEW do to possibly grab them? And so then I say, usually what I say, which is, they didn't really do much on Dynamite. It was kind of like a, it was a little bit of a tired show for the whole week or whatever. And so, but that's the opportunity, right? Like if we believe that you can still attract fans or get some crossover fans, what can AEW do when WWE does not have a good show? I don't know, if anything. I don't know what the loyalty is on the WWE side.
There's a lot of loyalty, and there's a lot of the idea look that they're the major league and the other guys are the minor league, and you can never beat that stigma. You know what I mean? It's like you could have the most exciting minor league baseball team in your metropolitan area, and it will never outdraw the major league team, even if your major league team sucks and is boring. I mean, that's just the reality, and that's the stigma. You know, they have, you know, decades and decades of being the name value brand, you know, so they got every advantage. They've got every advantage in the book. But you know, like I said, like I have seen a lot of wrestling wars, and I've never seen one take the war for granted and be shown up and still think that they weren't shown up. So that's something that's a real different thing. Like you look at those old companies when they did those wars, and they freaking loaded those head-to-head shows up so big at both sides. You had to, right? You had no choice. You load this thing up, and WWE is like, we're WWE. We don't need to bother. And we don't even need to tell the wrestlers that, hey, you know, like pick up the pace. We're following a great show. It's like, whatever they did doesn't count anyway. And it's like, you know, so I think that is what sort of disappointed me about WWE a lot in this thing is they picked a fight, they went head to head, and then they didn't even, you know, go out of their, they took it for granted, and they were wrong too.
It's also, it's one thing to take it for granted, but afterwards when the critical reviews come in, I can't remember, Andrew Hale, right? ESPN.
Andreas Hale.
Who gave it the review I gave it, and I have WWE hardcore fans in my life. They all thought it was basically a C-grade show. It was fine. You know, perfectly fine show.
Yeah.
But you can't then get annoyed at the reviews. Like, you can't have it both. I don't know. I just think, look, the lesson I think from the last few AEW versus WWE wars is brand value has its limits. Okay? Brand value, those people are still going to come back, right? They might not like the show a lot. They might feel the media. Are they still going to watch Raw? Are they still going to watch? Yes. You know, they'll still be there for those shows. But if you're expecting them to rave about your shows or talk about how amazing they were and stuff, you've got to put on better shows. And as Dave said, this is not a talent problem. Yep. They have plenty of talent. Like the women's division is, I would argue, more stacked than it's ever been. The men's division is stacked as well. You know, Cody and Punk, these are all great workers, but it's creative. It's what Dave said. They're just being lazy. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's just laziness. It's just, we don't need to. So
I wouldn't say lazy. I think they work hard. I think it's complacent though.
Yeah.
Okay. The last thing I was going to ask you is because you talked about this lesson that Tony learned, going first is going to be better. Do you see WWE countering in a different way now?
Trying to do afternoon shows?
Countering either by going in the afternoon or going Friday night. I guess they can't go.
They can't go Friday.
They can't go SmackDown.
They can't go Friday night, and it won't hurt anyway. The nature of the fan base is like you going the day before used to be what you would do in the local territory.
Right.
Go the day before, and then the people aren't ready to go to a show the next day. People are used to watching wrestling every night of the week, so I don't think that's going to hurt in today's marketplace. But if they were to go in there on the same day and go first, obviously AEW does not move, but then you still have the thing of you still have to have the better show.
Yeah.
Because you go on the same,
gotta deliver.
You go on the same day. I don't care if you go first or last. If the other guy has a better show, you're not helping yourself, and you're not going to hurt. You're not no. Like if they had gone first and AEW had been at night, would it have hurt the number, the buys? There's no way of knowing. My gut is a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's like if you had those two shows in the opposite order, one show still heads and shoulders above the other one, and you don't. If you're WWE, you don't want that. And so at the end of the day, it's like if WWE wants to compete, they need to compete. Because
I will say your afternoon discussion, whether or not if you go long during the afternoon, I think I could do that a few times a year, but more so than most, I'm probably going to watch those shows on delay because I usually have stuff to do on Saturdays or Sundays afternoons. Like if you make that a habit for someone like me who's got young kids and older kids, and we do family stuff a lot, I'm going to postpone the wrestling to do all that other stuff because I cannot have the excuse of it's wrestling when there's wrestling every week, right? Like you just can't use that excuse with your family. So that's what's going to happen but I can, a lot of times you get home in the evening, which is why UFC shows are pretty easy because they're on at 7. And so you get to do your day stuff and then watch UFC. But even like a 5 o'clock AEW show, I can more than likely be home by that time. But a noon AEW show on a Saturday once a month, I will probably miss half of those live and have to watch them later. So I think that's maybe a risk that we'd have to see play out if it affects it.
That's a good point. And I think that's one of the reasons why, even with the results of the last 3 shows, Tony hasn't moved those other shows. You know what I mean? The rest of the shows this year, because there is no head-to-head, he's going prime time. Like you could make the argument that like this proves it's better. And he, everything in history tells you that's wrong. I mean, it's funny because everything in history from everyone, boxing, when they do afternoon shows in the United States, they freaking die, right? It's like UFC down like 30-40%, when they would do the afternoon. AEW, that didn't happen, and AEW did well, but again, every single month, I mean, it's 3 shows, and one of the shows was such a freaking blow-away show, but this one wasn't. But this one you had the low price, so that's something else. So but it's still something to learn from. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of the afternoon show, especially for Europe. You know what I mean? If you're trying to cultivate England and be, as your big, overseas territory that you really want to cultivate and be the good guys for. If you go every time in the afternoon, you are beating WWE because they're still going to do a lot of nighttime shows.
And it's clear, and I'm assuming it's because of that Wembley show next year. He is tracking the rating stuff really closely.
He always does. Tony's Tony's very, very into ratings, which probably from a Tony standpoint makes this period so frustrating because for him and for me and for anyone who follows it, because we literally don't know. John, like you and I talk about, we have no idea what's doing, we have a fragment of an idea, but we really don't know because we're only getting 64% of the data or whatever you want to call it.
All right. Last one here from Jake. Did you read the new Gorilla Monsoon book yet, Dave?
And no, I haven't got the book. I haven't got the book yet.
Uh-oh.
It's not out.
Does that mean that you and
the 30th, I think.
Yeah.
Hasn't come out. I haven't read the book. I mean, I talked to Brian, Brian Solomon, who wrote the book. I talked to him. I was interviewed for the book. I'm sure this book is a passion project of Brian, and he did a fantastic job on the Sheik book. So I know I'm going to like it. I know it. I'm going to like the book.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to that book.
Yeah.
But then I guess, this is for everyone since it's going to be more on next week's show. But since you guys are here, he's curious how Monsoon will do next year based on the book.
Well, I haven't read the book, but I think that Monsoon is something we'll talk about next week. That's probably the best way to put it. It's like, I have a lot to say, and this is, next week's the time to say it. And it's there's a lot. There's a lot to that ballad with historical figures is an interesting ballad. The foreign ballad is a pretty the ones we got left are all the Mexico one, not as much, but the other ones,
Yeah, but are really strong.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about the other ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am reading the 84 stuff now, and it's funny reading your Gorilla Monsoon comments. That's all I'll say. It's pretty funny. All right, hey guys, this was awesome.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Thank you.
All right, we are ending the stream, so take care, everybody.